Hi, Josh.
I am Jeff Bowie. Hi, Jeff. Jeff works with Talent Reach. We are a boutique uh, recruiting firm here based out of Seattle. We work with hiring managers, CROs, VPs of sales, people like Josh, who are trying to sort of figure out how to place the right people into their in their companies as they grow. And so I like to talk with people that know this world inside and out and have some expertise to bring. So I'm really excited, Josh, to get to talk to you a lot about like the teams you've built, how your strategies about building them, your philosophies around them, things that you can lend to the hiring community or even people applying for jobs, especially as we talk about tech and sales. On my world, like we specialize in tech and engineering roles and sales, and I'm on the sales side. So really, my world is figuring out how to get salespeople up to the top possible level of their experience, of their abilities, and find them the right spot with the right groups, because every no group is created the same. So um, my job, Josh, I'm just going to let you talk. I'm gonna hit you with a few of the topics we talked about, but give us a little 30-second. Who are you? What's going on? I want to tell everybody in your spot. Please pitch yourself. If you got anything you want to promote, anything you want to like let people know about it. This is your time, and um, I'm looking forward to hearing everything you have to say. So, hit it.
Thanks, Jeff. Glad to be here bright and early Pacific time. Hopefully, I can keep myself awake and functional. Uh, really, I've been in sales for a long time. First and foremost, I'm a salesperson and a teacher trainer. I find a lot of passion in helping new salespeople grow, as well as established salespeople continue to grow their career. I'm a VP at Frontline. I've been at other tech organizations like Tiny Pulse, Amazon, Zillow early on, etc. Throughout my career, number one passion, of course, has been watching people grow and get better. Uh, did I cover it for you, Jeff?
Yeah, that's great. So, where are you now? Talk a little bit about sort of what your current role is, and I'll back up into time if you don't hit too much on it.
Yeah. So current role, VP of Sales at Frontline. Frontline uh, is a cool company because we're the best of both worlds. So we're a software company that's been around for 23 years, but at the same time, we feel like a startup. This is an organization that our LTV or lifetime value of a customer is, in the decade range, which is unheard of in the SaaS world. But historically was comfortable growing just by referral and recommendation. They had companies that were just there. So really what my goal was coming onto the organization was great. We know we have product market fit. We know that we're super sticky once we get in. Let's go and let's take this to the world. Let's really go help these organizations, in our case, be safer and understand there are better ways. And build out a sales team of just top players that are going to help us catapult forward.
So, you with Frontline, like what is the end service when you're out selling and bringing this to market? What are the core values? What are the core products that you're speaking to prospects about?
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, what we're trying to help people with in the safety space is both workflow management. So, we're dealing to these large, giant organizations and machines, and we're helping them go from this idea of where we're using paper and pen or Excel, and it's a very robust and complicated process to change out this process or change out this piece of equipment or change out anything we're doing. Is there a better way? Do we have technology today that can help us, drastically make sure every step gets made, drastically increase that process and that speed? Yes, we do. Paper and pen and Excel is still the oldest thing there is, and these are governmental organizations. These are some of the top organizations in the world in their space. Without name dropping a bunch of our customers, these are big, giant moving machines. And the fact that so much of what they do are boxes of paper in a room, that if they get audited, if they have to go look, if they have to prove that they did all the right steps, they're digging through that. And it's a better way. And then the other side of that is that learning management. Let's make sure that all these people are trained. Let's make sure that all these people are doing that continuing education and making all those steps correct.
So that falls, it sounds, squarely into and I'm going to throw out one of the first of many slippery terms that we like to talk about in sales is digital transformation. Is that fair? Like,
yeah, 100%.
So that's something that I think is important for salespeople to understand, because it's not a straight up product. It's more challenging dare I say, consultative sales. So talk a little bit about sort of what you guys offer when you're making that conversation. When you've got a giant corporation that's been using paper and Excel, and you've got to move them into the 20th century, but 21st century. What is the biggest challenge there? And then talk about the sales challenge that goes along with that.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge there, what you're fighting against isn't competitors. To be honest, we'd almost prefer to have more competitors in the space, because with more people comes more education, more trust and belief. Really, we're fighting against complacency. This idea of, I've had this pain for so long, I don't even acknowledge it anymore. I've had this problem. This is the only way I know. Why would I even believe that there's a better possibility out there?
Right.
And how do you get past this? It's a prescriptive selling model. You hear consultative, you hear solution-based sales. For me, it really boils down to prescription selling, which is, I'm a doctor. I care way more about the problem than I do the person. This isn't rapport building. You don't close large, complicated deals with rapport building. This isn't, I hate to use the old adage, but this isn't used car sales. Like, we need to go in there and understand, can we help you? We need to go in there and understand what is the problem. And in a lot of cases, our customers don't really know what the problem is, because they've lived with it for so long. They don't even acknowledge it is until you dive in and go deeper and deeper and deeper. So it's just deep understanding. And so the people I'm looking for are super curious.
In terms of building that sales team. Yeah, because naturally they've got to be able to not get caught up in the, like you said, in the rapport building or the product. I mean, obviously they got to know those things, but really, like, hey, I've got to be the doctor here. Is that what?
That's right. I mean, you don't get someone to stay with you for a decade because you're best friends. Like, that's just not a thing. Big companies and government organizations are going to spend money just because they like you. The red tape's there for a reason, and rightfully so. It's there to prevent people from buying just because they like someone. They need to be able to prove that there's a deep problem that we're going to solve, that ROI is there.
Interesting. Okay, so you've got a very specific challenge when it comes to building that team. Is this, and I'll get back to this in a second, is this similar to the work you did at places like Tiny Pulse and Amazon, or were you also, was it a different framework that you?
Sure. I would say, obviously, everything's a little bit different of a framework. Tiny Pulse, for sure, as much as you wouldn't think that culture space is the same. One, HR is the most flooded sales space there is. There's just 1,000 different tools and companies selling to HR. So when you're going against people that are being sold 24/7, and you'll see online, I go into battles a lot with salespeople. Nobody likes to be sold, in my opinion. It's not that I have a problem with salespeople. I love salespeople. I am, at my core, a salesperson. It's that people don't want to feel like someone's sole job is to try to convince them or sell them on something. Instead, people want to feel like you're actually on their side of the table. You're diving in and you're trying to find a solution. You're trying to get it to that heart of that problem. I live with that adage of, you're not going to go out of your way to go back to that same car dealer that sold you that car. You're not going to drive 50 miles. People will drive 50, 100 miles to go to a doctor. And they're not best friends with that doctor. They don't want to have a beer with that doctor, but they trust that doctor. That doctor is that subject matter expert that's convinced them and taught them something. And that's really where we're living. And that's what we're looking for.
So really, what I'm hearing is, between those two companies, which are vastly different on paper, it's a very similar concept. Like, you've got to have somebody who can go beyond selling, right? We all get them. We all get the pitched emails, the pitched LinkedIn's numerous times a day. Your inbox probably has 99 of them this morning that you have to sort through, and they kind of sound the same.
Yeah,
a lot of times. So talk a little bit about that approach. Like, when you're talking about the front end of your funnel, when you're coaching or you're building a team, I guess you're thinking about conceptually, because you talk real quick, growth, both at Tiny Pulse and at Frontline, you've have what, 400% growth rate of staff in both?
Yeah, which seems like a lot till you realize we're coming from like nothing in both scenarios.
Okay, 100% of zero is still zero.
Yeah, I mean, doubling a team and doubling it again sounds like a lot till you realize you go from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 4. It's that exponential growth. And I think if you look at most really successful companies, like, they all started with that. Like, growth seems really slow for a very long period of time. And much like that exponential growth curve, if you dive in, it looks flat for a very long time. And then all of a sudden it skyrockets. really where I found a lot of success is let's put that process in place early on and let's focus on that while it's flat. And hiring for a while for me is going to be who are going to be the people that are going to be managing and teaching the people, 4 steps down the line.
Okay.
And I'm way more concerned about that than I'm people that are going to come in right off the bat and just massively overproduce. One, because the best leaders and trainers I know are always your second best salesperson on the floor. So I'm not really looking for who is that one unicorn that can sit in a corner and do it in a way that nobody else can do. I'm looking for who is the person that can achieve high levels, doing it exactly the way that everybody should be doing it.
So I love that. Say that again. The person you're looking for is the person who's the best manager, coach, trainer is the second or third best seller.
That's right. Yeah, I mean,
Break that down just real quick.
anybody in sales, you've probably seen it before. You see those sales managers that maybe struggle or their team is unhappy, and a lot of that comes from not that the manager isn't a good person, doesn't care about the team, is they had such success, they try to teach it in the way that they were able to do it. Then really that just doesn't always translate a lot. There's always that one person that can do it in a way that nobody else can repeat. They say things that if I were to say, not only would that customer be pissed off, I'd probably be fired. But for them, it just works from their tonality. It works from just everything about them. Those are the people that you want the hiring managers to go find for sure. Those are those A players but you never want to train a team on them. And you can't get 50 of those people. You're going to get 5 of them, and you're going to put them in various corners of your office, put walls around them, hide them, and pay them money. And that's great. They've earned every dollar, but this isn't really who you want to promote.
But we
And
do know that it happens all the time that they
all the
get
time.
promoted.
Well, and it's because they believe that that's the next step in their career path. One of the things I think is most lacking is both manager and leader training in sales, as in every other part of the company. Like managers don't get trained; people get promoted without ever being trained on what to do. But also this idea of let's sit in career path and show only one path, which is a leadership path. I think, especially in sales, that's the biggest falsitude that's being pushed on people is that's not your only path. One, you're going to make a lot more money going down the enterprise sales rep than you will ever going up the leadership path in the first place.
Fair.
2, you really have to be passionate about it. In most cases, when you really dive in with those people, they're passionate about selling. They're passionate about being that hunter and going and having success. And for me, a leader cares more about their team winning than they do about themselves winning. Like, yay, I close a deal. Congratulations. Anybody on my team closes a deal, that's the biggest win of the day. And let's all jump for joy.
So it sounds like you've got a couple different hires that you almost have to have different job descriptions for.
Yeah.
So and I won't forget that, but talk about the person who you then look at to hire, say, you're not my best producer, but you will. Why is it that person makes a better leader? Potentially. Sure. I realize that it's a blanket statement, but
yeah, I think that's a powerful question. And it really boils down to this. If you have to build a system and a process that's repeatable, you're not going to try to build it around that idea of like everyone say this thing that this guy's saying that's not working. Instead, let's look at her over here that's doing it exactly the same way, a robotic way every single time. And it's super repeatable. And if everybody were to do this, we can see like 80% results across the board, which FYI in the SaaS world, like that's what we build plans off of is 75 to 80%. We don't assume everyone's going to hit 100% all the time. We're going to walk into board meetings left and right, just depressing everybody if that's the goals that we're setting.
Right. So it's not so much that the person is not a good seller, quote unquote. It's that they are process oriented.
Yeah.
Does that help?
They're process oriented, and like usually that repeatability, that ability to be process oriented, just doesn't typically make you that number one on the floor. They might compete occasionally, but what you see as well as that's the person that can lead the best because their process is repeatable. Their process is about let's make sure we're doing all the right steps every time. And that's what you have to be able to train, especially to scale. You can't train one-off acts.
Right. So does that mean when and back to the point a second ago, does that mean that when you're hiring, you have 2 different job descriptions? I mean, you probably don't, or maybe you do, but you're looking for somebody who says, hey, this is a process-oriented person who's coachable, who I can give the playbook to, and then also, now I also need to hire this like cowboy who's going to go and just like sit in the corner and crush on their own terms.
Yeah, so early on hiring, it is for me, it's about that process orientation, the right people. You're going to get that A player, but first, while you're building process, you want to make sure you're bringing the people that can follow that process. They're going to show everybody else. You want 95% of your workforce being that, and
Mhm.
everyone new coming in seeing that. And so hiring, I live and die by just a simple rubric, especially because hiring loops are going to inevitably be past me anyways. It's not just going to be on me to be
Mhm.
doing this. So let's make it really simple. I pick 4 hiring metrics depending on the role. And I just say, these are what you're looking for. Here's a couple example questions. You can write out all the questions for people, but at the end of the day, they're still going to ask what they want to ask. So instead, I just try to give them a theme of, this is the things I'm looking for you to pull out, and just break down and judge them on a simple scale, and tell me, how is this person rating on each of these, and that's what I'm going off of.
And
So that keep it simple.
what are those metrics?
Sure. So I'll give you an example. I knew you were going to ask me that question, so I pulled up one of them ahead of time. So for like an SDR role that basically every sales org is going to need at one time or another, I'm looking for 4 things. I'm looking for coachability, I'm looking for their work ethic, I'm looking for curiosity, and I'm looking for drive. And really, with each one of those things is one, because in most cases, most SDRs, they're just AEs in training. You have those few ones that want to go up that leadership in the SDR path, and that's great. We'll look and pull those ones out, those diamonds in the rough out. But for most SDRs, they're coming in with this goal of, my job is, I want to move past this. I want to learn this skill set and become the next step up. So let's just look for that right away. Let's look for the people that have all those base skills coming in early on, and see if we can target those.
Okay. So coachability. I spelled it wrong on my thing here, so apologies.
That's all right. Coachability, work ethic, curiosity, and drive. For the most part, I rate them evenly. I would say coachability and curiosity are the 2 most important pieces if I had to define which 2 are the most
Okay.
important. One, especially complicated sales, and not every SaaS company is a complicated sale. Some of them are 1, 2 call drops, and those need to hire differently. But
Sure.
for a complicated sale, like, you need someone that's curious. At the end of the day, they have to actually care and want to know what that answer is with the customer, with that prospect. They have to want to dive in deeper and learn. And you need someone that's not coming in and saying, hey, I've sold for 6 months at another company, I know how to do this job. Well, one, I'm not just worried about you doing this job, I'm worried about the job and the job after that. And 2, like, why reinvent the wheel? Why not come in, learn what works, and then make it your own after that? So you kind of have to be able to come in and be ready and willing to try feedback and take things and say, great, let's try this. And if that doesn't work, we'll try something else.
Now, don't get mad,
Sure.
but everybody says they hire for these things. Everybody says, "Oh yeah, no, definitely want somebody who's coachable, who's got good work ethic, who's got great curiosity. Oh, definitely want that drive, that grit, that." How do you actually demonstrate that when you're hiring? How do you find that person? Like, how do you then give that to them on the back end, right? Because part of this whole
Yeah.
process is finding, sourcing, and then delivering. Because again, people a lot of times want to hire that A player,
Yeah.
and then they expect them to sit in the corner and produce for them, and can't believe that they're not, a team member, or they're not coachable, or they've left to go somewhere else for more money 6 months later. So how do
Yeah,
you demonstrate those values?
I think that's an important question. And I think you're exactly right. Like, one, whether it's these or it's something different, everyone out there is like, great, I'm going to hire for certain things. That's what I'm going to do. And then you see a sales turnover at like 30% or more across the board. How do I do it? I'm going to answer your second question first, and then I'll go back to your first question. How do I demonstrate that? One, I truly try to show that those are my number one focus, and I give a lot of leeway. So
Okay.
especially early on, I talk to them right off the bat. Like, I don't really care about the ramp period. Ramp will be as long as it needs to be. If you're doing the right behaviors, if you're showing all the right attitudes, that's what I care about. And we've had people that have taken way longer than the average person, way longer than the average company would give them to get to that point, that then all of a sudden skyrocket up. And it's
Hmm.
because, one, you have to get them to a place of comfortability. You are not getting let go 2 weeks in if you're not just magically killing it. And some of the problems you see with some organizations, which I've been a part of before and was able to survive, but it just destroys you when you see all the people that came in with your hiring class getting turned out 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4, is some companies will scale by, I'm going to hire 20 to keep 3. Like they know that they're going to lose most of these people. Most people aren't going to make it. And so for them, it's just a numbers game. It's like every 20, I know I'm going to keep 3. So I'm just going to keep running classes year round and doing that. The problem is everyone else around you starts to feel like, oh crap, I'm on the chopping block at all times. And that doesn't promote good sales. Scared sales is not good sales, period. Instead, let's hire the right couple people and really try to foster them and really try to put in that space of, you continue to give me all of your effort here. I hired you because I think you are that A player. Now let's prove me right. Let's work together and spend a lot of time getting you there and give you a safe space to come to me and be like, nothing is working right now. What can we do? So one of the first things I teach and train, and probably some of my team is on this call right now, is the first thing we do is we go through a book called Go for the No. It's a short little campy book that's like 60 pages and tells a sales story in a guy's life. It's a weird, silly story, but what it promotes is this idea of fail first and fail fast, and that failing is the only way to get to success. And so, and the reason is I want the team to understand right off the bat that we are a fail culture. It is okay to fail. We should be failing, because if we're not failing, we're not trying things. So let's promote this idea that fail is not a 4-letter word. Every one-on-one, one of the first things I ask is, what did you fail at this week? Let's just normalize failing. And so if you can get that culture and get that idea after hiring for that, hopefully what that'll do is get you those players that feel comfortable trying a bunch of different things. And that's how we learn, and that's how we grow. Does that answer?
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's really awesome. I love that idea too about normalizing it, because again, everybody says, oh, you got to make sure you fail. You got to make sure you fail. But I think what we don't tell people also is that, hey, listen, you don't have to enjoy it. It's not like we're telling you it's like, all right, I did it, and like I'm supposed to feel good about myself. But normalizing it is, I think, pretty powerful if you build that. So you touched on the other. Well, you didn't say it out loud, but we were adjacent to the other really slippery term that I love to talk about, is quote unquote culture.
Yeah.
And I think we all will say, oh, there's a great value in culture. I think very few people know exactly what it means. What I like, and I want you to talk about it just a little bit longer, is the fact that you've identified a culture in your company, and tie that to how that internal coaching that you're giving, that leeway, that autonomy that's so important, with that nice edge of being a micromanager, can fall into culture.
Sure. And I'm fortunate. I've worked in some great cultures before, so that helps. You can set a baseline. I also literally sold culture for almost 6 years at Tiny Pulse. That was the product we were selling. So this idea of culture matters, like, I know it does. And having worked in a good culture, I just don't want to work in a bad culture. And maybe it's selfish, but I'm only want to hire people that I think are going to promote culture growth. And there's 2 terms you hear a lot. One is drastically more important than the other one. You hear culture fit and culture add. Culture fit in my mind gets me a bunch of Brads and Chads, just a bunch of the same people and it kind of produces that, at least in sales, that bro culture that nobody wants, especially me. I'm looking for that culture add. I'm looking for people that look at things differently than me, challenge me, come in and say, hey, this is the problem. I'm going to come at it completely sideways, because that is how we can learn and do really impactful things. It's just how we get better. And so constantly, I want someone that's going to attack a problem in a crazy way. How do you get that? How do you keep a culture, especially remote? We are a fully remote company. And the fun thing that most people don't realize, remote has so many great benefits, like so many great benefits. My commute went from an hour and a half to 7 feet. The downside of that is remote is a culture killer, especially in sales. Like, it just does. And, salespeople are people. At the end of the day, we need to be around people. And I think that's most people in an organization, and I've worked in big tech companies with developers that have their own floor. Like, even they need to be around people. They'll spend 3 hours coding in the dark, but then they'll take a break and go play foosball and chat and just have some social time. And you don't get that. as well as you don't get that disconnect. For better or worse, my commute gave me a time to stop working, and I had to drive home, and I'm just going to focus. Now, at any point, I can just jump back on the computer and I'm back to work. And you lose some of that with the remote culture. So you have to do a lot to get past it.
Are you? I guess we're gonna take a bit of a left turn, and we can always come back to the current conversation, because I think that we hear tons about, pick your term, return to office, hybrid work, and there's a lot of data that's solid around productivity of in-person culture. There's also, as we've found, a lot of data around the fact that remote works. Is there a one size fits all that companies can start to look at that we
Sure.
aren't seeing? I mean, because it's all over the map right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. And this was a question that we were actively facing at Tiny Pulse even before we left, because COVID was a year and a half strong still there, and companies were left and right. We were doing surveys, we were checking with people. I think at the end of the day, we could spend all day talking about whether companies should go back or not. Or really, what I would say is, one, there's no one size fits all answer for any organization. They got to do what's best for them. I think there are pluses and minuses to both, for sure. I think in any scenario, you have to combat the minuses. If you're going to say we're going to stay remote, great. Then you have to put money, time, and effort to focus on that culture. If you say we're going to come back to the office, and you have to put money, time, and effort to focus on those benefits that they're losing. And they are gaining benefits by being at home. Productivity, I've seen both be incredibly successful. One, in an office, anybody that thinks that people in an office are working all 8 hours, that's just, they're misled. Like,
wait. Now, add on to that the fact we're talking about salespeople.
Yeah. And not even just salespeople. That's everybody. I don't care. Hardest workers in the company are still taking long lunches. They're still,
Sure.
there's a reason why there's ping pong and foosball in every tech company. Like, they're being used for a reason. And it's decompression. Go back 20 years, it was sitting at a water cooler and chatting. At the end of the day, people need to get away from work and stop. I would say at home, if anything, that happens a little bit less. The benefit of being at home is they can go sit down and watch TV if they need to, or decompress that way. Everybody needs to find a decompression. If I can get 4 or 5 hours of solid work out of someone, that's like a good day. And anything else is like, let's not even try to pretend that it's anything else but that. Instead, let's just try to optimize for those hours, and everything else is just an add-on or a bonus. People are going to produce when they need to produce, but otherwise they're going to go at a normal speed.
So talk to managers here, because this is where the noise comes from in the articles you read about productive. Oh, the people aren't being productive. I can't keep an eye on them, because there's an element of control that
Sure.
that in remote we don't have. And I think a lot of it comes into that delta between, like, are you putting in 4 hours? Are you putting in 16 every single day? And we have
Yeah.
this culture where it's like, the more you do, the better it is. If I'm not seeing it. So how would you coach other managers, other leaders?
Change your mindset. Stop
Well, that's
looking
not
at
easy to
a
do.
effort mindset. Look at a production mindset instead. I'm going to get this quote wrong, so please feel free, everyone, to go Google this and find it somewhere. The Netflix CEO was really famous when he was asked, like, what would you do if you have an A player that works for 2 hours and massively overproduces, and a B player that gives you 150% but just gets to the line? He's like, I would give that B player an incredible severance package, and I would give that A player more responsibility and more money.
Mhm.
Like, at the end of the day, if you can get it done in 2 hours, great, get it done in 2 hours. Like, I don't care. Like, either one, you're driven and you want more, and you're going to come talk to me in our growth conversations. You're going to say, hey, I can do more. I want more. And that's probably going to be someone that you're going to promote and continue to throw money at, but great, they're producing. Or B, they're going to be completely happy with their lifestyle, producing at 100% at 2 hours. What do you care? You're getting 100% out of this person. Like, at the end of the day, like, if anything, I'm more concerned about the person that's getting to 80%, putting in 10 hours a day. Because one, why is it taking you so much longer than everybody else? Let's focus on that, and let's give you back some of your time. I'm paying for a task, not for 8 hours of your life. And as
Mhm.
long as that task or that job gets done, what do I care, and why is that hurting me as a leader to say, do it in the time that it takes you to do it?
Wow. So I think that's a huge key here for where we are. So how do people, because your first statement was change your mindset. Well, that's easier said than done, right?
Sure.
Human behavior is extremely hard to make change on. You've succeeded at this. How, what sort of, how did you get there? What sort of resources are there? I mean, because the ability to identify and sit back and say, well, I see that I've got this productivity here. Let's run with that is counter to what we've been taught for, 50 years of management.
Sure, but so is remote work. Like it's a new world. We have to adapt or die. We
Yeah.
are the dinosaurs here, folks. Um, I, for me, it started 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Probably the most impactful leadership training I was ever at. Came in and and I'd give you all her info, but she doesn't do it anymore. We were one of her last class. She's like, I'm kind of taking a break and moving on with my life. She came in and she said, at the end of the day, role clarity is the number one reason why people lose jobs, whether they get fired or whether
Role clarity.
role clarity, yeah. And it's not only for that person, but for the manager. So I would challenge each manager to say, what is the actual responsibility or thing you are judging this person off of? For sales, sales is easy. There's a number. And people will say, oh no, it's these KPIs. They need all these things. I'm like, but is it really? Like actually you hired them to produce X number. This is their quota. This is the number they need to do. Anything else is just clutter. And so you need to, as a manager, sit down and write out, and it should be one sentence or less. What is the core responsibility to keep this job? And in most cases, it is to produce X. Great. Now, all that extra clutter is a problem because if someone doesn't know what their real responsibility is, they're focused on the clutter and not on what they actually need to produce. And so I do this with my team, ideally every 6 months, maybe it's every year, but let's sit down and have a role clarity conversation. And
Okay.
I ask the same couple questions. But the most important question is, what is your job? And you'll get these paragraph plus answers of, well, I need to make this many calls a day and this much talk. I'm like, no, your job is to get X. SDR, it's X amount of meetings. For AE, it's produce this amount of closed deals in a month, in a quarter, whatever that might be. This is your job. Let's erase everything else that you have on there and focus on this is your core. And I write my answers before, and they write their answers. We come in and we literally show each other our answers. And now, if you want to get promoted, that's the next one. What do you need to do to be promoted? Well, you need to do X and take on more responsibility. If you don't want to get promoted, you want to stay in your job, as long as you do the first answer, I don't care what your day looks like. I just don't. And I challenge every manager to go write down, what is this person's core job? And if you can't do it in a sentence, one, you've overcomplicated this. And two, you're probably asking too much from them.
What about taking? So we talk about A players, B players, and hiring. What about taking somebody who looks like a B player and really uncovering some of their hidden super skills? Like I talked to Brett Green, who's an ADHD executive coach last week, and he talked about with people who have ADHD, for example, and there's lots of different examples. What we're seeing externally looks like somebody who's lazy, who's not focused, but with the right training, with the right culture, right approach, that person can be a superstar because of really focusing on the things that's going on in their head. So right, so you've got somebody, you say, here's what you need, here's the number you need to hit to be successful, and they're 80%, they're 50%, they're 30%. And everybody's got a different culture, right? We talked about it a second ago. Maybe it's like you're out if you can't hit the number. Sorry, we're moving on. Are you a proponent of that? Are you a proponent of a coaching program, some way to uncover those? I'm long-winding this question, but some way of really taking that B player, uncovering some hidden talent, and turning them into an A player for you.
Sure. I think those are, it's an important conversation. I think there's two different questions there. One, this is sales. We're talking about everybody has ADHD at some level or another.
Yeah.
That just is what it is. But, I'll answer your micro question first. I personally am not a proponent of just, hey, you're out. I am a proponent of early on, if this isn't the right role for you, let's define that early on and let's really talk and have open conversations. Am I going to tell other organizations to just get rid of them or not? That's going to be their personal decision. I am a proponent of transparency. Like if that's the culture you have, you need to be really open with people that this is the time frame you get to there, and I'm here with you till then. But at that point, this is where you will be. I'm not that way, but at least Like if you're going to be that way, you should be very transparent about it. Now that second question, the more impactful question of one, do I think it's important to try to identify someone's hidden skills and help them? Yeah, of course. Do I think that they should be moved into an organization? Potentially. Definitely done it before. I've had B players that have produced at that 50, 60, 70%, and they're giving it their all. They're doing all the right behaviors. This just isn't the role for them.
Hmm.
And if you
Hmm.
can identify that, and especially if this person's a culture ad and they're making you better, they just literally can't do this job well. One, let's see if we can find the right job for them, or see if we can find that right skill set for them, because they're just going to make us better.
You mentioned they
Um,
might make good managers.
that's right. They could be
Yeah.
good managers. They could be sales adjacent roles. You know,
Mhm.
I've had SDRs that have moved to sales enablement, moved in to sales training. Like sometimes what you find is the bored kid messing around in class is the one that's just not being challenged and is
Mhm.
actually exceptional at a lot of things, but they need a lot of things thrown on top of them. They need a lot of tasks, and just making the same calls every day, just doing the same thing. That's why you see a lot of people that early on were killing it, and then 6 months or a year down the line, like seem like their heart's not in it, don't really care. Everybody just attributes it to burnout, and maybe it's a little bit of burnout, but a
Mhm.
lot of it is they're probably just bored. They
Yeah.
probably need more responsibility and more tasks to help them get to that next phase. So a lot of that conversation needs to sit down and mapping out, here are all the jobs that can come from your current role. Like, what do you want to be in 6 months? What do you want to be in a year, 3 years? You know, I live in a world where I'm fortunate enough to just know right off the bat that most of my team is not going to retire with me. So if we can just all accept that, let's accept that. One, let's get the best performance while you are with me. And two, let me just help you grow. Maybe you're my boss 6 years from now. I'd rather just have a good relationship and try to help you accelerate to wherever you're going to go in the time we have together,
While meeting the metrics that you're
while trying
required
to
to.
meet that role clarity. Like
Right.
at the end of the day, like I'm not just going to randomly move you if we can at least focus on this core role. But if you can do that at your best, I will work with you to get to any other role that is your passion and desire.
So what about behavior change? You say somebody who's got potential are and they're open to coaching. What's your thoughts, right? Are good salespeople born or are they made?
Yes, that it would be it'd be a lie to say that there's not just some people that just don't naturally have some of that skill. What you tend to see for a lot of those people, though, um, is one or two things. One, they're just going to be A stars and they're going to the moon. Like that's going to happen. They're going to be the people that are killing it, and at 30 are taking someone to a unicorn, $100 million company. Um, or they're going to very quickly believe that they're the best and not be open to coaching, not be open to anything. So great, let's put them in a corner and let's pay them a ton of money and let them kill it. But they're never really going to lead. They're never really going to train other people. That's usually what it is. On the other side of that, you have people that maybe like, I have some aptitude for this and I'm willing to put in the work. I'm
Mhm.
willing to train, I'm learning, I'm
Yeah.
growing, I'm getting better, increasing process. Like the thing is, at the end of the day, the best salespeople I've ever known that can be A players, but also could lead and do everything else there is, are actually not the most social people. They're not those used car salesmen. They're not the people that are just friendly report. They're all, they've got that blue mindset. If you color code, like they're analytical thinkers, they're process
Mhm.
driven, and a lot of times these are people that are super focused on tweaking. How do I get 1% better? How do I get 1% better at this? And constantly
Mhm.
tracking themselves. Those are the people that are going to inch their way to the top and never lose that spot. But also, you can train everybody else like them. That's who you're looking for. And in most cases, they've got the aptitude, but they've also got that drive to continuously learn and get better.
Yeah, so now you tied it all together, right? These are the types of people that you can put into an organization that bring everybody up, that solve
Yeah,
some of these problems about coaching, like your term, culture add. So when you're out there searching for that, they're
yeah.
they're
I
they're a
mean,
critical component. Yeah, no, I love that. Were you saying something else or?
no, I'm just saying, yeah.
Yeah.
I want more of them. I want all of them if I can find them.
So yeah. So now put your magic hat on, your bolted crystal ball, heading into the back end of the fourth quarter with the economic situation being as weird as it is. Should people be hiring? Should people be holding? We're seeing a lot of I'm hearing a lot of people in your position sort of say that their clients are holding,
Yep.
and I try not to read too much of the news and the headlines because it's only the negative layoffs that make the news. But give me some advice. Like what should people be doing right now? Should they be recruiting? Should they be laying off? Nothing.
Sure. I think, I wish there was a perfect answer. I think a lot of companies are one beholden to a board that's going to tell them what they can and can't do, even if they
Sure.
want to make those decisions. And a lot of those boards kind of play by the same playbook, which is, when things are good, I don't want you sitting on money. I want you hiring, 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 because they only win if a company grows massively. That's the only way they really get money, and they're willing to make that bet. They're playing a roulette table. They're putting on a bunch of different numbers, and they only really need one of them to score for them to make profit and be able to do that all over again. The challenge, of course, is for the average employee, that's not a great life to live, because when they go to downturns, they say the exact same thing across everybody, which is what we've seen repeatedly. I need you to cut by 10, 15, 20% your cost. And now you need to sit on some of that money. Most people would be terrified if they actually saw how much runway their company had in cash holdings. Uh, you know, for an average company, it could be less than 12 months of cash on
Mhm.
hand to be able to pay for everyone and keep the doors open without. And when you're talking runway, you're talking how much money do I have left? If no customer paid me another dollar as of today.
And
Um,
and by the way, that's a really great candidate question to ask when interviewing.
yeah, I mean, it's not a horrible one, especially depending on your role. You should be looking at, like, when was the last time you guys have done any kind of layoffs? You're growing right now. What would you do if
Mhm.
you didn't see that growth, which is what everyone's seeing for the most part right now?
Yeah.
Do I think companies should be hiring? I think it depended on the company and depending on what their goals are, for sure. I think it's the roles they're hiring for. Whenever there's a downturn like this, all of a sudden, all of the papers that have been there forever start to come to light, that talk about how it's worth way more to a company to invest in retaining your current customers than to go out and just find new customers. And so all of a sudden, like, should we be hiring salespeople? Yeah, let's just put them as retention managers. Let's have them going out working, because customer success are not salespeople. And to assume that their job is to go and try to sell and grow and retain accounts, it's going to hurt you, and it's going to hurt you where you're losing customers. Instead, let's put people that are comfortable having hard conversations in roles to sit with customers and say, hey, I'm not going to put my head in the sand and wait until you're unhappy. Let's talk on a regular basis, and if you're unhappy, let's just talk about it, see if we can solve it for you. Let's get to the core of it and invest in not only saving you but potentially growing you.
Mhm.
You're already within that organization, so should they be hiring? Yeah. Should they be focusing on also making sure they're keeping all their current customers? Probably. And if you can do those two together, you're going to be way less cash flow concerned.
So is that two different hires? I mean, obviously, they're two different job descriptions between a CS role and an AE role. And
Yeah.
if so, is that a argument to lay off salespeople and bring on the people who can have the hard conversations and do more customer service?
Well, hopefully your salespeople can have the hard conversation. Remember, they're not there to do customer service,
Right.
but account managers are just salespeople. Retention managers are just salespeople. They're out there selling, trying to grow. They're trying to build that some of that relationship, but they're deeply understanding what's actually happening to you, and is there anything else we can help you with, as well as let's make sure that what we're helping you with is
I think I misunderstood. So you're saying that it's a fungible skill.
yes.
The titles can be moved around with success.
And let's not make CS have to focus on that. Instead, let's take the money we have and double down, knowing
I
that every saved dollar is worth two of new dollars. When you look at cost to acquire a new customer, how quickly you're losing customers, versus I can just save this person for another 3 years. Like, I'm going to get way more money off of doing that. Let's double down on that for now. Let's hire in that focus. Let's put more people into CS and make sure that we're doing a good job of producing while we're coming through this. And as we come out, we'll have grown our current book of business significantly within those customers, as well as still having people focusing on new business and adding new customers.
Yeah. And I see an opportunity. If you look at the layoff tracker, for example, and you go back into tech for the past, call it 12 months,
Yep.
the amount of actual layoffs is wildly eclipsed by the amount of current open roles.
Yeah, that's
You can,
right.
you can do a quick search. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's one, because any good sales leader knows you're never not hiring. And so even if you just laid off 500 people, like, you still need to leave, you still need to constantly be hiring going. and I use the Michael Jordan term, but maybe it's LeBron, whatever your favorite basketball player is. Jordan is GOAT. It boils down to this: if Michael Jordan of sales came in tomorrow and said, "Hey, I want to work for you. I want to learn from you. I want to work at this organization. I'm going to find money for him. I'm going to hire this person." Like
Okay.
ultimately, any sales leader wants to put their very best people in there, and they're going to do whatever they can to do that. As well as it just takes a long time to roll up. And if we don't know that 3 months, 6 months from now, we're not going to be selling again and pushing and hiring, like we have to keep those roles open now and keep that conversation going, because it takes 3 to 6 months to roll out a role and really get traction and get the right people.
So assuming that we are not going to be forever sort of worried about the economy, is it a Q1, Q2 type of expectation that we should be thinking about? Like that would argue for hiring more at the latter end of the year based on what you said, or are we looking more towards the past that into the Q3, Q4?
I think
Because
hiring is still happening.
yeah.
And I think that the next step to that, the other side of the coin of that conversation, is the people that are going to produce for you, even now in a downturn, are also going to be the people that are not going to get hired the same way as everybody else. So these are the people that what I'm looking for when I get, I have an open role. I just got 350 resumes for it, like factual statement. What I'm looking for are the people that are being outside of the box creative, going above and beyond, because those are the same people that are going to do the same thing as they're out trying to get new customers. So that's what I would say we'd be looking for right now. I think if those people, and if everybody spent more time personalizing and trying to get hired smarter and not just doing that traditional, I'm going to put my resume in to 50 people and hope that someone's going to call me back. Instead, let's be really smarter and put it into 5 or 10 people and put in that same amount of effort, but just focused on 5 or 10 people. They're
Mhm.
probably going to get more callbacks, because those people are going to look at them and say, great, this is someone that's going to get past the gatekeeper, that's going to get to that decision maker now. If your product's good enough, people are going to need it now more than ever, period, if you're solving problems.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a hiring manager, what do you see as well? Because again, you read that there's still a gap. It's hard to find people, and
Yeah.
I can say from our side, we see the same thing. So it's weird, right? It's like there's this disconnect of like, well, we're laying everybody off. We're not sure what's going to happen, but I also can't get enough people to come work for me.
One, and this is going to sound a little crass, but it is just what it is.
Oh, good. We need some spice here. It's been too boring.
Companies probably didn't get rid of their A players. Like the people being laid off, like the rubrics that whatever their rubric that they're defining is an A player for us, those are probably the people that survived the cuts. Because
Mhm.
companies didn't get rid of whole divisions, they didn't get rid of all of our salespeople, they kept some. They just did. And so if for maybe this wasn't the sales job for you, maybe this wasn't the company for you, and I'm trying to not just keep it sales because I think it's everybody,
Yeah,
every
maybe you're an A
division.
player somewhere else.
Yeah, maybe this wasn't a role for you, but that doesn't mean that this other thing isn't something you could be that A player for. So one, it's a little self-reflection on, was I really killing it, or was I a B player because I wasn't excited? This wasn't the thing for me, like, et cetera, et cetera. Oftentimes I get these resumes, these people that have been in sales for a long time, and I'm talking to them, I'm like, you wouldn't be on this call if you couldn't sell. It's, can you sell this is what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
no question to me that you are a capable salesperson, but not everything is the same. And it really is this that thing that you're going to be able to meet
Yeah.
for me, what that is, that A player rubric. And so I think a lot of how you apply shows how you sell. And the same thing would go for anything else. You see all these things online of people that are creative developers that do creative ways. They build their own website for resumes, things like that. Like, go put some of yourself into your next home, your next role, and show the company that this is who I am. Maybe you're going to meet their rubric, and maybe that's going to get you that role.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. We do. Yeah. We talk to people. Sometimes they'll say, well, I'm hiring salespeople, so I want them to sell me. And then some people be like, I don't want them to try to sell me on the call. I want to try to understand who they are, right? And
Yeah,
that's just a difference of finding that spot, which I think speaks to the fact that again, it's not a fair term, A player, B player. I like to use it because it sparks
sure.
conversation, but finding the right fit
Yeah,
is, and that's the last one I'll throw at you, the slippery term that I like to talk about with candidates is like finding the perfect fit. There's nothing's perfect, but if we're not shooting for the thing that really is the best fit for all parties involved, we're not probably setting ourselves up for success. Agreed?
100% agreed. And on that same party lines, it's not just on the candidate to change their perspective, especially in a market like this. I can't find anybody right now. Well, are you being too restrictive? Or like, what do you have on your application? Go adjust that. Are you getting a diverse candidate pool, or do you need to change what you've written in there? There's 100 things you can do on the hiring side. Number one is start interviewing people that are at 60%. Make 20% of your candidates that you're interviewing people that do not meet every one of your qualifications. You will find an A player. You will find a diamond in the rough. Some of the best people I've hired were bartenders before they talked to me, but they came in and they had all of those right things. And other companies are missing out on it because they're applying to all of these companies. Those companies like, no, you don't meet in most cases, way too much experience requirements for this role. So,
I think I know it's a topic that I'm passionate about because I think people do miss out, but there's it's the security blanket approach.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe it speaks a little bit too. So maybe, board hirings and stuff, because, we work with, VC firms. It's like, here's the laundry list of things that keep us safe. If I can point to this and say, well, I hired them for this, then, it's not my fault they didn't work out. Advice for hiring managers to say it's okay to move that bar lower.
And this advice goes all the way up the line to the board too. I'm right there with you. It's a passionate topic for me. Advice number one is stop being afraid. Like, there is most of that is, to your point, a security blanket. I'm afraid that we will fail. You're going to fail either way sometimes. Like, stop being afraid of failing. Instead, be willing to try something and be willing to say we were wrong. Like, great, we hired someone, we spent a bunch of money on it, and it didn't work out. That could happen in any scenario. You can hire someone with all of the right experience. They come on, and sure enough, toxic culture, not performing, whatever that might be, happens all the time. Everyone's heard that story. Vice versa, you can hire someone that doesn't look like they're going to be the right fit, and they could come in and kill it. Like, it's that same mentality. You talk about the board that they say, like, great, we have this CRO that got us from 1 million to 10 million. Now we need to go find someone that's gotten a company from 10 million to 100 million. Let's go put that person in place now. It's like, well, or you can go with the horse that got you there. Are either one of those right or wrong? Maybe, maybe not. But at some point, like, just lean in and try something. Hiring manager, same thing. There's a fear of, I'm going to hire the wrong people, fear of, I'm going to have to keep training. Like, training is our life, hiring is our life. That is most of management. And once you've accepted that, then you can get past all this. Like, you're not a salesperson anymore. Your job is not to just be selling. Your job is to teach the people that are going to be selling.
I love that. We're gonna promote this again, and I'm gonna put that as the big quote. Right? You gotta, because it's not a set it and forget it thing. I think that's and I don't know if it's how popular it is anymore, but for the longest time it was hire an A player and then forget about it. Like, it's coin operated, salesperson. So we're coming down to the last few minutes. Talk to me a little bit about the types of things you want to promote. The things I see you on LinkedIn all the time with some great advice. Anything, continue with that, like that topics of passion. I've got your contact information if anybody wants to, get in touch with you.
Sure. I mean, for me, at the end of the day, I'm a passionate trainer coach. That's where my passion is. Like, I love selling, but I'm more excited to see other people get better and grow. And, I love the fact that I have people that started with me as bartenders that are now incredibly successful salespeople in high-level roles at various companies that I still connect with and I'm still friends with. Like, I could say that I could promote all sorts of things, but really, I talk on LinkedIn because I have stuff inside me. I just need to get out, and hopefully somebody can find some value in it. I sit down with, early founders. I sit down with salespeople that are SDRs for the first time. I don't really care what your role is. If I have something that can help, I'm pretty okay with trying to help. It's what's fun for me. I literally coach both my kids' soccer and baseball team all at the same time. At the end of the day, that is where my passion lives. And when you find something you're passionate about, I think most people never run out of energy for it. That being said, I live and die off of caffeine, if you haven't seen. So I wouldn't say there's a lot for me to promote. I love my current org. I like seeing us grow and do something. And I encourage everyone out there to go find that thing they're passionate about. And that's what I would promote. Once you're passionate about something, it stops being as much work as it is like, this is play.
Yeah, that gets us closer to that perfect role. you brought up a couple things that are hard for people: behavior change, not being afraid. Talk to me. Any advice, resources like books, TED Talks, your own posts that you've done that really you find help bring people like they can go get right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of those and more. One, this is a great age for data and for learning if you're willing to do it. Everyone is getting so skeptical about the actual news and the learnings. I'm like, well, how do we know that this person's a qualified source? How do we know? Like, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Like, one, I'm a big fan of look at the resume, look at what they've done before. Did they do what you want to do? Did they do what you're trying to learn from? Great, then take something from them. But go out and explore and get the voice from 5 different places. What you'll find is good advice, and it tends to make its way around to a lot of people. It's not the same person typing this. You'll find a lot of people saying the same thing, and it's because they've all learned it their own way. So just go out there and explore the data that's out there. For me, my post, my favorite post to date is what I wrote like 2 years ago, and it's my son coming to sell me on something. He came upstairs and he kept wanting me to pay for this video game for him, and I just kept blowing him off. And he asked for 10 minutes of my time and put a PowerPoint together. And he sat down and literally ran me through on how it's going to be a value add for me to buy him this game. Needless to say, he got that game 10 minutes later, like done and done. It could have been the worst PowerPoint in the world. The fact that he put it all together and he really tried to sell me on value selling, on why it will help me, was and worth the $50, no question. I would spend that all day, every day.
How old was he?
He was at the time 10.
10, putting together a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah. It was right when COVID had started. He was home all the time, playing video games with his friends, was basically the only way he could hang out with his friends. Right. And he put together this PowerPoint on the value behind it. I'm like, done, sold.
You're in trouble.
Yeah, no, I'm aware.
That's awesome. That's excellent. So, okay, so good. So if I haven't made it clear, everybody should be following Josh in his content. It's always some good stuff, and I like the way that you mix it up too. You're not afraid to sort of throw out your opinions and hear people's advice. You roll your eyes, but it's not it's not the norm. A lot of times we try to.
I saw something the other day that really impactful to me. It's like, stop posting stuff out there just to get people to like it. I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely not doing that. So, a lot of what I'm doing is pissing off some people, but it's just what I believe and what I've seen to come true.
That's good stuff. All right. Well, in closing, I don't have a whole lot more. I think we really covered all the major pieces. I really appreciate you spending some time chatting. I look forward to seeing what comes next.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'll come back and do a recap with us in a few months and sort of see how it's been going.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Obviously, feel free to reach out to anybody. I'm usually pretty open to connect.
All right. If anybody needs anything, Josh, no problem. I'm Jeff here at Talent Reach, and we will be back next week. I have another psychologist lined up, so we're going to talk about the psychology of culture and sales. And if anybody has anything else they need from either of us, reach out. We're widely open. Josh, have a great rest of the day. I appreciate you meeting me so early.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to bed now.
All right. Have a good one.
See you guys.